Hi, I'm Greg. So I'm going to talk about ES6 today and why we use the latest version of JavaScript nowadays. So ES6, what is it? What does it mean? ES what? The story starts in 1995. Netscape Navigator was the best browser at the time, and it was dealing with static content. And they wanted to have dynamic content as well. So they thought, let's create a scripting language that's part of the browser. And they created one. They named it Mocha. And then they renamed it to LiveScripts. And they made friends with Sun, who was editing Java at the time. They thought, oh, we can appeal more to the people developing, working with Java. And so they renamed it to JavaScript. And so it was born in 95. And 2 years later, it was standardized as ECMAScript, codename EC262. ECMA comes from ECMA International, which is the standards organization that takes care of it. So if we look at the milestones from the creation, ES standing for ECMAScript, we had the first version, and then after 2 years and a long time, 10 years, we had more versions coming up and a few features added over time, but nothing really major. And here we are today with ES6, also called ES 2015, adding a bunch of features. And if we look forward, we can already see that there are going to be many new versions coming up. Every year, we're going to have a new version of JavaScript. So it's going to be ES 2016, ES 2017, etc. So the pace has really taken up. So you might wonder, how big is ES6? What is inside? It's actually the most ambitious update that's happened in the JavaScript world so far, except for ES4. But ES4 was so ambitious, it was actually abandoned. Microsoft and Netscape didn't agree on whether it would break the web or not. So in some sort of way, ES6 is a revival of ES4. It's made up of everything that works on ES5, the old JavaScript as we knew it about 2 years ago, and from new features and new syntaxes that will not run on the current ES5 engines. And the support for ES6 is getting pretty good on Node and on the major browsers. The new version of Node released yesterday, I think, Node 6, is supporting 93% of the ES6 features. You can check for each version of Node in the browser versions what are the features they support. There's something you can Google, Kangax, a compatibility table, where you can see for each version what is available. And something interesting to note is that a large part of the code you write in ES6 can be converted back to ES5. So this is called transpiling, when you bring the new syntax to the old environment, and polyfilling, when you bring the new features to the older environments. So how would you use it today, as the browsers don't support everything yet? If you want to experiment, you can just open your browser console and type some code, and most of it will work, but not all of it. Or you can use one of the websites like JSBin or JSFiddle. You just type some JavaScript code there, and you can see some live editing, and you can see immediately the resulting HTML or console logs that are happening based on your code. There's also the Babel website. Babel is a tool, the most popular tool to convert ES6 code to ES5. And when you type some code on their website, on some part of their website, you can see the resulting ES5 code that they create based on your new syntax ES6 code. So that's quite convenient to experiment. But when you want to use it for real development, you will just use any modern editor. We like to use Atom, for instance, and take a plugin to support the new syntax. And most people will use Babel, which is really the most popular tool now for conversion, along with a build tool of the JavaScript world. So that can be Grunt, Gulp, Webpack, or any of those. How do we use it at Accedo? At the moment, we mostly use Webpack with Babel. One advantage of Webpack is that it provides a hot reloading server. What it means is that when you are working on your editor on the ES6 code, as soon as you save on the file, you can see the browser being reloaded automatically without you doing anything when having the new versions of the files. Also, it supports source maps. So that means that when you want to debug the code, you're actually debugging the ES6 code, even though the browser actually received and is running the ES5 minified code, which you wouldn't be able to understand easily if you were debugging that. For Node, we use on-the-fly conversion. through a tool called Babel Register. It means that every time Node loads a file, it goes through Babel first, so that it gets the converted code. But this is only for development. For production, we don't want to have any overhead like this. So we don't use Babel on runtime, we only use it on build time. And talking about Node, we only convert the features that the Node versions we use do not support yet. So you can selectively convert any feature you want with Babel and not convert the other features. You may wonder why we use it. And the first reason is that it's really shorter code to write and much more expressive. So it makes your code easier to type. You have less chance of making any mistake. And it makes code reviews faster as well. It's really easy to use today thanks to tools like Babel, so there's no good reason not to use it, really. And you want to stay on top of the crowd. If you look at the technical blogs nowadays on the web scene, a lot of articles are already using ES6. Even some of them use ES 2016, ES 2017. So you need to get familiar with this if you don't want to be left behind. There's also a new syntax part of it that allows you to write modular code with a really nice syntax, import and export. And this is something that you could only do it with libraries so far on JavaScript. So now you have a new syntax for it. And thanks to Babel, it works on both client and server code with the same syntax. Also, we may see some more improvements with newer build tools whenever they get improvements. They are talking about bringing some new features like tree shaking, for instance, to reduce the build size. So here's a basic example. I chose something quite visual to show you how much the code can be shorter than before. So the ES5 code is on top, and the exact same thing can be done in this one line in ES6. This is demonstrating the arrow functions. So this is this syntax here with the arrow. And here, this just means that we create a function that takes an argument A, and it's returning a function with argument B. That's returning itself A plus B. And that's exactly the same thing above. But once you're used to this syntax, it's really much faster to understand what's happening here. Here's another example. If you have an array, and you want to take the first, the second, then all the other elements in the array, you have to do it in 3 times, usually in ES5. And in ES6, you can just do one line to do it all. So this is using array destructuring with this syntax here, and the rest parameter at the end. And once again, it's much more readable, but of course, it means you need to get used to the syntax first. A few quick tips about using ES6. There are some features that you cannot convert back to ES5. Namely, I'm thinking of the proxy feature. So if you are targeting ES5 browsers, you should not use that feature. So keep that in mind. Also, you want to check the impact on the converted build size. As Babel is adding polyfills to your build, if you're using all of the ES6 features, Babel will use more of the polyfills in your end code. And so your build size may be bigger. If you have tight constraints on the JavaScript file size, you may want to watch this. Apart from this, I'd say it's really a good idea to start using it from today, as long as you proceed with caution. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Any questions for Greg?
One here. Do you use pure ECMAScript 6 or do you use TypeScript?
We use pure ES6 because we wanted to stick with the standard. And TypeScript is interesting, but we also see Flow from Facebook, and we're not sure which one is really the best to use today. So we are looking at both, but when we started working with ES6, not everything was available to work along with Flow or with TypeScript. Now it has progressed. It seems to be better, so we have to revisit this.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg.